For bitmap textures or image file maps, we have options. We can use the 3ds Max legacy bitmap node, or we can use the new OSL bitmap nodes. Going forward, I do recommend using OSL. The reason is that it gives us far more control over mapping coordinates or UV parameters. For example, we can control the mapping coordinates for multiple bitmaps at the same time from a single control. That will save us time and ensure that all the bitmaps share the same mapping coordinates. Let's create an OSL bitmap lookup node. Right-click in the Material Editor graph and choose Maps, OSL, Bitmap Lookup. Once that's created, we're prompted to select a file. And if you're not taken to your current project's Scene Assets images, then you'll need to navigate to that location. And here I am within my current project Scene Assets images, and the file I want is tiles travertine Versailles color.jpg. Select that and click Open. If we select that node, we'll see its parameters displayed, and it really doesn't have a lot. If we look at the position and scale section, all it's got is an input for UV coordinates and an overall scale. If we had chosen the Uber bitmap node, then we would have built-in mapping coordinates. But in this case, I want to drive the mapping coordinates from an external node. So the ordinary bitmap lookup is the appropriate node in this case. You'll notice that for some OSL maps, there are multiple outputs. For 3ds Max legacy maps, there's only one output. So when we connect, for example, the color RGB to the base color map of this physical material, we'll see the map appear in our viewports because the material is in realistic mode. And we'll also see that the connection wire changed from red to blue. That blue color is an indicator that there is a hidden output selector map in between these two nodes. So when OSL was introduced with multiple outputs, we needed a mechanism to make it compatible with the existing 3ds Max architecture. The solution to that was to insert an output selector map, and that is hidden by default. And when that output selector is hidden, the connection wire is displayed in blue to indicate that there is a hidden output selector. We can display the output selector maps if we want to by going into the Material Editor menu to Options, Preferences, and we can disable Hide Single Map Output Selectors. Turn that off and click OK. And we can reorganize our graph, click in that graph to give it focus, and lay out the graph with the L hotkey. And we see now that we've got a bitmap lookup node going to a map output selector, then going into our base color. Okay, I was just going to show you that so you can see what's going on here. Usually you do want to hide those output selector nodes, so go back into the options to Preferences and re-enable Hide Single Map Output Selectors and click OK. All right, so I've got a base color. I also want a bump map, and I can create another bitmap lookup node in various ways. One way is actually just to drag out from a material or map input. So I've got the bump map input down here, and I can just click and hold on that input and drag outward, and I get a red connection wire. Release the mouse, and then I can choose something to create. So I can go to Maps, OSL, Bitmap Lookup. And once again, I need to select a map, and this time I'll choose Tiles Travertine Versailles Bump.jpg and click Open. Then additionally, I need to choose which map output I want. So in this case, once again, we'll choose Color RGB. And that connection's been made. And now we've got a bump map in our viewports. We can see that. If we select our material node, our physical material, we can scroll down and increase the bump amount, crank that way up to like 5 or something like that, and we can really see that effect very strongly in our perspective view. All right, I'll bring that back down to a value of 1. Now we get to the real advantage of the OSL nodes, and that is the ability to control the UV coordinates from an external map. So let's do that. I'll go to the UV coordinate input of that base color map. Click and drag, release the mouse, and choose Maps, OSL, UVW Coordinates, UVW Transform. And select that node, and we've got a bunch of controls in here. So for example, we can change the scale. We can set the overall scale to be 10 times larger. Now that only affected the base color. If I want that to affect both of them, all I have to do is make that connection. Connect the UVW output to the UV coordinate on the bump map. And now both of them have a scale that is 10 times larger. And I can set this down to whatever I want, value of 2, or back down to the default of 1. Okay, that's how to assign bitmap nodes, and it illustrates the advantages of using OSL bitmaps.